Welcome everyone to the very first episode of Got Your Trade, a talk show with my boy Rocky B Trades. If you don't know about him, he's been on the freaking Wall Street Journal, so you should go, check him out on Twitter. Man's a genius when it comes to stocks and trading and all that stuff. Uh, but we've been great friends, best friends. I mean, since what 2008. it
Oh
goes
yeah,
oh, it goes a long way back. And we both, we've both always been huge fans of sports, huge fans of gaming, and in different ways we both have been very much into financial literacy, independence, investing, trading, and all that. So we came up with the idea to combine all those interests and start our very own show called Got Your Trade. So today, for the very first episode, we're just going to be introducing a little bit of our backgrounds and then touching a little bit on some recent developments in the stock market, as well as a preview of Game 2 of the NBA Finals between the Miami Heat and Denver Nuggets. So, Vincent, I'm gonna have you start off. Obviously, just like dive in a little bit about your background with stocks, with trading, how you got started. Everything I guess leading up to where you're at now.
yeah. Well, first and foremost, welcome everybody to Got Your Trade. As you guys know, Drew had talked about in the beginning. We go way back. We are been friends since literally like 2008 or even before that, and I've known Drew since the fourth grade. So we do have a lot of common interest, and we've remained very close friends to this day. And that's why we decided to come on here and do this podcast. But just to go ahead and explain a little bit about myself, my name is Vincent or Rocky Trades. Most of you know me as that. And I've been trading for about 3 years now at this point, but doing it full time for two. And my interest for it really started in November of 2020 when I first had a one successful options trade. I studied finance and economics in school. At that time, I really didn't know what I wanted to do because the summer before that, all my internships got canceled for COVID and things like that. So I really just put, all my efforts into learning about the stock market. Sure enough, I became really good at news trading, which has been my top style for profitability, and it's been able to afford me opportunities to come on other people's podcasts and go on the Wall Street Journal. I've been blessed to be in that position, but outside of the stock market, I'm very passionate about um, sports. I love all different types of sports: basketball, football, all of it, baseball, soccer, and I. For those of you who don't know, I actually was really big into Call of Duty competitive gaming. That was one of my first passions, like 4 or 5 years ago, and so I still do care about that industry as well, and that's why we decided to come on here and do a podcast and just chop it up. So I'm really excited for the first one.
Yeah, man. I mean, shit. Like you said, you literally were gonna go pro. I swear. Yo, Dane Trades is in here. What's up, man? Welcome to the
Oh,
podcast. So I mean, shoot, yeah. I mean, this has been in the works for a little while. We've been going back and forth, trying to I've been constantly saying like, yo, Vincent, like we got to do something together, content wise.
for sure.
I have had a little bit more of a focus on the gaming side of things. I've been involved uh, with Breaking Point, which covers all like Call of Duty League news and stuff. Um, and like Vincent said, obviously he's been a lot more into the stock trading scene recently. But all three of those different categories of things are just uh, common interests that we've shared in varying degrees over the last decade plus, and it just felt right to go ahead and make a show combining all three. Um, and we're not necessarily going to cover every single one of the three topics in every episode, just because uh, we're not going to force the news, if you will. If there's stuff to be talked about for each one, we're going to go ahead and do it. Um, in this case, I couldn't really think of any like gaming related news to cover for this episode. Champs is coming up for the Call of Duty League June 15th, so I think in 2 weeks. So as we get a little closer to that, it'll be a little more fun to cover that. But other than that, not a lot going on. But we did want to start things off talking about, with sports, talking about the NBA Finals. I mean, honestly, we can go even just talk about the playoffs in general too, because I feel like these playoffs have been absolutely nuts. As y'all can see, Vincent's repping a Lakers shirt. I'm
Wow.
repping a Boston shirt. I'm a Celtics
Yeah.
fan. They obviously, almost made history and then didn't. And here we are now. We've got two teams, Denver Nuggets, who have never won an NBA Finals, and then the Miami Heat, who haven't won the finals since LeBron was there. So it's a really weird time. I feel like in the NBA, I don't think anyone going into this season expected Miami to be where they're at. Um, Denver probably just because Jokic is a stud. That man
Yeah.
is.
That's an
He
understatement.
should have been a back to back
Three-time
to back
MVP.
MVP.
Mm-hmm.
But they gave it to Embiid. But I mean, you know, what do you think? Like looking at the Miami Heat, looking at their run they've made from playing tourney to NBA Finals, taking down the number one seed, the number two seed, and I'm trying to think of who else they
The
beat,
Knicks.
and the Knicks, who had like their best season since like the '90s. I mean,
Yeah.
well, when you're watching those games, like what are you seeing that's sticking out about that Miami Heat team?
Yeah. Well, first off, with the Miami Heat, they just really show that it doesn't always take talent to win games. I love that about them. And I wouldn't say I have like a specific team I'm rooting for in this series. I mean, I really do like Jimmy Butler. I've been to one Miami Heat game in my life, which was like 3 or 4 years ago, so that was kind of cool. But in terms of the Heat, I mean, they play really hard. They play smart. Everybody buys into the culture, which I love. And Eric Spoelstra is showing that he doesn't just win with LeBron and the big three. And I think what people are failed to realize is that this guy has never won a Coach of the Year award, which I think is disrespectful. Just to do,
It's
last year they
absurd,
were the one seed.
honestly.
Yeah, and what's crazy is last year they were the one seed. So this year, I didn't watch a lot of the regular season, but I heard in the pressers that, a lot of their games were really decided by a close amount of points. And, they don't really have the most talent, obviously. They're not going to beat you, always scoring more than you. It's more so they just lock in and just play really hard when it matters, and they make the big shots when it matters. And I love Jimmy Butler as a just pure competitor. Again, not the most talented guy, not the craziest performer in the regular season, but when it's game time, when it really matters, he steps up. He's a great leader, and I just like how him specifically. There was this narrative that he's a toxic teammate. He can't play with others. And then ever since he's left Philly and Minnesota, I mean, he's been the one going further than those teams by a mile, and he has way less talent than those teams, you could argue. So
100%.
just to see that, and then also Eric Spoelstra, I mean, that's just inspirational too. A guy who was in the video coordinating team in the '90s to now being probably a top three, top five coach in the NBA. And I'm part Filipino. He is a Filipino. Like I don't know. I think that's
I
cool.
didn't
There's
even
not a
know
lot
that. That's
out there.
awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. And just to see like his growth and the overall team's culture, it's just been cool to see. So, what are your thoughts on like the Heat and just
Yeah.
Denver and
Yeah, I
how
mean, obviously we can start off with the Heat. I can give my take on that, and then we can switch over to Denver because obviously a lot to unpack with them as well, and they are currently up 1-0 in the series going into Game Two tonight. But I mean, just I got to watch the Miami Heat a lot. Like I said, I'm a Celtics fan. We played them. We were down 3-0, came back, and then got beat by I don't know 20 in Game Seven. Just wasn't meant to be. Um, and you watch that team, and it's so much of it is just the will to win. With every single person on that team, and I think that's what's most important. Is it's not just like one or two guys that come off the bench that show that heart and passion, because that's like what you expect in the NBA or in sports in general, especially at the pro level. You always expect like some guy to come off the bench and play with the most heart because he's not the most talented. But for them, I mean, it's top down. Jimmy Butler, who, like you said, he's their most talented player by a mile, but when you stack him up against other superstars in the league, Luka Doncic, Giannis, Tatum, even, he doesn't have the same skill set. He's not a great 3-point shooter. He's not breaking anyone's ankles with his dribbles, but it's the way that he'll shoot a three, and he's under the basket getting his own rebound, putting it back
Yeah.
faster than anyone's even reacted, and it's just you don't see that with star players in the NBA anymore. Like you just
Oh.
don't really have that level of hustle. So it's amazing what he's been able to accomplish, especially considering he's never been really looked at as like a superstar, at least in the regular season. And like you said, he's had different destinations where he's with the Sixers. They decided to choose Tobias Harris rather than keeping him. He was
It's an
with
L.
the yeah. I was gonna say that's definitely gonna be one of the
Huge
biggest
L.
L's we've ever seen in sports.
Yeah.
You've got he was with the Timberwolves, Karl Anthony Towns. That didn't work out, and then he goes to this Heat team where his second best teammate is Bam Adebayo, who is he's decent. He's no he's no Jamal Murray to Nikola Jokic, if you will.
Heck no.
He's not a true number two when you consider things like that. But it doesn't matter because the way Jimmy Butler plays, in my opinion, is what inspires your Max Strus, your Gabe Vincent, your Caleb Martin, who I mean. Caleb Martin in the series against the Celtics looked like
Awesome.
a freak. Like everyone, talked about like playoff Butler, playoff Jimmy, looking like prime Michael Jordan. The way Caleb Martin played in that Celtics series, I was losing my mind because I was like, this guy
Yeah.
didn't get drafted. He was on the Hornets, like in their G League or whatever. And we're talking about Hornets here because we're both from North Carolina, so although they sadly can never really put things together and be competitive, we want to see them succeed because that'd be awesome. And Caleb Martin was there, never saw the court really, and then he's in Miami, and he didn't have a great game one. None of the role players really did for Miami, but that series against Boston, they were lighting it up. It's just been fantastic to see because I feel like for the longest time now we've been in this like, longer, I would say more than a decade, almost probably coming up on like 15 years now, which is a really weird thing to say considering like me and Vincent have so many memories together like when we were 15 years old and now we're talking like 15 years ago. But like
That's crazy.
it's weird, man. But honest to God, like this whole like dynamic in the NBA has been super teams, and you got to have a big three, and the Miami Heat, at least this iteration of it, are completely bucking that trend and just showing that if you have a team that works their ass off in every aspect and doesn't fall in love with one particular way of playing, you can beat anybody. Because you go look at the regular season, they were, I want to say, bottom 5 in 3-point percentage,
Word.
and then you come to the playoffs and all of a sudden they're shooting like one of the better 3-point shooting teams. But they still have nights where it's not falling, but they can adapt, go inside, get to their free throw line. Their adaptability and the way certain players coming off the bench. I mean, when you got a guy like Kyle Lowry who's won an NBA championship, has been, maybe not a all pro or anything like that, but has been a star point guard in this league at times in his career. When you have like someone like that can come off the bench and get buckets for you, they're built to. On paper, it doesn't look great, but I'm not surprised seeing it. Seeing how they play, I'm not surprised seeing how far they've come. But of course, with the NBA Finals, there's two sides. There's two teams, and the Denver Nuggets might be one of the most powerhouse teams that has not gotten nearly enough
Not
love
enough love.
or
Not enough love.
credibility across the league.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone talks about Nikola Jokic because the dude is just
Insane.
he's a wonder. Like you look at him and you're like, that's not what a pro athlete looks like. That's not what a
Yeah.
superstar pro athlete looks like. And
Mhm.
this man is just freaking like Magic Johnson combined with like I don't know, like Dirk Nowitzki
Dirk,
because a
yeah,
big man
yeah.
that can shoot. I mean, he's got so
He
many
is.
different traits of different great players.
I agree.
Um, but that team in general, like I didn't even realize it until I went and watched Game One of that Heat of the NBA Finals. There's so many different players that don't get talked about. I mean, do you want to cover a little bit about them? Because I mean, obviously we said Jamal Murray, but I would say there's plenty of others too that you could bring up that have a huge impact and
Yeah.
are a reason they're at where they're at.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Denver is one of those teams where, on paper everybody's like Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, but as a basketball fan, I've been watching Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr. Like I used to watch Balls Life mixtapes,
Oh
and
yeah,
I don't know if I'm sure most of you've probably heard of it if you're any basketball fans, but I used to watch Michael Porter, Aaron Gordon. And Aaron Gordon back in his day when he was a top five pick, number one, and number two, he looked like he was going to be the next Blake Griffin. Really athletic, twitchy, strong, good finisher. Okay, and to have him as your fourth best player is insane. Michael Porter Jr., for people that don't realize, would have been the number one overall pick if he didn't hurt his back. He only played one college basketball game because he had back issues, so he slipped all the way to the 15th pick. And in high school, this guy averaged like 35 a game. He's 6'10", he can shoot threes, he can block shots, good rebounder. And for him to just be your third best player, you got Aaron Gordon as your fourth best player. You have the most selfless superstar in the game. Was probably behind Jimmy Butler. I mean, they're one and two. But Nikola Jokic is another guy. He loves giving his teammates credit. And as a basketball player, like, I play a little bit myself. I'm not great by any means, but I love it when guys pass the ball to get other teammates involved. That's why I like LeBron. I like, those guys because you get to see your other teammates do well, and it really just helps the overall flow of the game. It keeps the ball moving, gets everybody involved. That's a beautiful way to play basketball. And you take Nikola Jokic. I mean, the guy should have been a three-time MVP winner. The only few other players in the NBA have done that, I believe, is like Larry Bird and I think MJ or just the all
right.
timers, and he's definitely going to be in that conversation. He wins his finals. He's a top 25, top 20 player all time. But like you said, I mean, he's got the game of Dirk with the shooting ability from long distance, Magic Johnson with the passing, and he's a tall guy, can bring the ball up. And then I feel like a little bit of Hakeem Olajuwon with the footwork up and
I was gonna
unders.
say
And
the same
I
thing. That's
mean,
the other
yeah,
comparison I had in my
like
head.
his game is just so fun to watch. And again, it's not the most athletic, and it's not Giannis or Tatum with the handles. It's none of that, but it gets the job done. And he's one of those guys where people think in this today's NBA, if you get a triple double, you're a stat pattern. Not for their case, because Denver has been like a top three or the number one seed for the past 3, 4, 5 seasons at this point. And just to see all their players buy in, they got a strong culture going on. I really could see them being like the next big thing in the West if this keeps up. Because Jamal Murray, Michael Porter, those guys are getting the respect they deserve, rightfully so, and they're showing the world that they're not a fluke. And I got a lot of respect for their team. So, um,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, I gotta say, obviously, I think one of the coolest things about this playoff run in general was the fact that once we got to the Eastern and Western finals, we had the same four teams that made the Eastern and Western finals in the 2020 NBA bubble down in Disney World. Uh, and so many people give the Lakers crap and say it's a Mickey Mouse ring. It doesn't count. But when those same four teams with relatively the same core of players all make it back within 2 years, and it's under completely normal circumstances now, it goes to show that it's not a fluke, that those teams really were back then as good as they are now, in the sense that the Lakers earned that ring, the Nuggets and the Celtics, they earned that spot in those conference finals. The Heat in the finals then. I mean, it's going to be tough for them considering if they do end up losing this, that'd be two finals losses over the last 3 years. But it's obvious that when they were against the Lakers in that one series in 2020, and then in this series now versus Denver, they're clearly the underdogs in terms of the level of talent
Oh
they
yeah.
have available.
Mhm.
And I mean, this Nuggets team, it's crazy because, again, Nikola Jokic goes from being drafted during a Taco Bell commercial during the NBA draft. Dude was not even shown on TV. Like, it was just a name scroll at the bottom, to now essentially being the face of the NBA, and especially if they go on and win this thing. Because the dude just has it all. And like Vincent said, having a star player that can get his teammates involved just as much as getting himself involved is huge because there really is no shutting him down. Like, maybe you're keeping him from scoring 30 points or something like that, but he's getting Jamal Murray open for, threes left and right, or getting Michael Porter Jr. open. I mean, it's so hard to play against a team like that. And I feel like, a lot of credit to Jamal Murray here too, because I feel like he's almost had a little bit of like a reemergence. He's had to reestablish himself since that injury that he had. Where I mean, I feel like he missed like a whole season or something like that.
He actually missed a year and a half. He tore his
Right.
ACL, so he was gone, and people are like, "Oh, this guy's only a bubble player." And
Right.
I think most people thought that because he was matching Donovan Mitchell back in those playoffs for like,
Yep.
he'll drop 50, Donovan will drop 50, and then I feel like he just, was kind of gone for about a year and a half with the injury. But I mean, he's back. He's shooting like 50, 40, 90 in the playoffs, or at least these couple rounds. I'm pretty sure from what I've heard. He's just been a stud too, and he's proven that he's worth what he's getting paid, and it's cool to see, because Denver has drafted these players, developed them, and even the coach. His first 3 seasons, he wasn't a winning coach, and most times in the NBA, if you're not winning in the first 2 or 3 seasons, you're out. But now he's been there for about 8 years, kind of like a Spoelstra, where they kept him no matter what. Like even through some downturns and some seasons, the front office, the organization has believed in them, and I feel like it's allowed himself and Denver to establish this culture where everybody buys in, everybody plays selfless, and just and I feel like that is what's building this winning culture for this team. I can really see him doing something in the coming years, continuing after this year. So,
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you go and look at some of the players even that they added to the bench. I mean,
oh
or
yeah,
actually, he might even be starting, but they got KCP on that team, right?
oh yeah, he starts. Yeah.
Who I mean came from that Lakers team that won it in 2020. So I mean, even adding pieces like that, like it might not look like a big deal in like free agency. It might not come off as one of the biggest, flashiest moves or anything like that. But that's a guy with championship experience, which is invaluable, especially in a league where a team like the Warriors has won like four of the last, I don't know, seven championships or something like
Yeah.
that. So getting someone that has championship experience is not easy because it's not like coming from it's not like there's a bunch of different teams out there that are winning year after year. And also just
Sure.
what he can contribute, outside shooting, which again, having a guy like Nikola Jokic where you can go inside and he can move it around all outside. Um,
Yeah.
it's insane. And again, I think it's cool even with them. Those players like Jamal Murray, Michael Porter, they're insanely talented. Don't get me wrong, but like going into this season or even throughout the regular season, no one would have looked at that team and been like, "Oh yeah, that's a true like big three or even just dynamic duo." You'd hear LeBron and AD, Tatum and Brown, uh, Embiid and Harden. Like those were like dynamic duos you would hear about. You didn't really hear about that with the Nuggets. And like I said with the Heat, it just goes to show that whole concept of having to have like a big three or two of the best players in the league, such as a team like Phoenix, who they have Devin Booker. They go out and they trade for a guy like Durant because they want that name value, I guess. Not to say that Durant's not still a great player, but he's not OKC Kevin Durant. I will say that he's not Golden State Warriors Kevin
Oh no,
Durant.
it's not.
Uh, And so it's cool. It's really cool to see these teams that weren't really highly regarded, don't get a whole lot of coverage, that are now obviously the face of the NBA, at least for the next few next week or two, because they're the only two that are still playing.
Yeah.
It's been it's just been awesome to see.
Definitely. It's been awesome to see, and it just goes to show that you can still build a championship team by drafting and really giving your players time to develop. Now, obviously, Jimmy was a free agent acquisition, but you take in Miami, I mean, they drafted Hero and Bam in the middle of the first round, developed these guys into all-star, max level players. I love the Duncan Robinson story. D3 to D1, had to work his way to their G League. He gets a nice contract. He can shoot the ball. Max Strus and Gabe Vincent, those guys were no names,
Undrafted.
undrafted, and now they're going to be getting nice contracts probably after this year. So it's just really cool to see. Both teams, they have like a different way of developing their culture and their rosters, but a lot of it's built organically, and I feel like that is how you really get a dynasty level roster. I mean, that's how Golden State did what they did. Obviously, Boston has all the talent to do the same thing, and there's only a few teams that can really say that. Maybe like a Milwaukee
Hmm.
too, but it is cool to see that not the biggest name superstars or the biggest organizations are really getting a chance to win, because this would be Denver's first, and this would be Miami's fourth, I believe. So either way,
Yep.
it'd be cool to see. But I guess I'll just bring it to the next part. What is your prediction, Drew? Who is winning the NBA Finals and how many, and who do you have winning tonight?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. The Heat, they did not have a very good game in Game One, uh, and
Mm-hmm.
and they ended up only. I want to say they only lost by like 10 or 11,
Yep.
which, all things considered, is not a whole lot. In the NBA these days, I mean, usually when you're getting blown out, it's 20, 30, because a team just starts lighting it up from three. Um, I could see the Heat bouncing back tonight, just because I mean, the way that they've shown that how they face adversity, their ability to fight back, just Jimmy Butler's lead by example type of play style. I could see the Heat potentially bouncing back and winning Game Two tonight, but I mean, overall, I just think the the talent that is Nikola Jokic, combined with the skill of the other players around him, and we didn't even really touch on. I know you did a little more than I did, but like Aaron Gordon, the way that he's stepped up and just been the guy to defend every single team's star player that they've gone against. And granted, his ability to guard LeBron in that series, you know, it was a little overhyped. Obviously, LeBron still went ahead and got his
Yeah.
numbers because that's what he does. But being able to contain a guy like that isn't easy by any means. But that's what he's doing now with Butler. He did it with um, Durant. I want to say when they went against the Suns, he was guarding Durant.
Yep.
Um, so I mean, even having a guy like that who's just willing to, like you said, he was a top five pick, and now he's more or less, he's a starter, but he's more or less a role player in the sense that his game is just really solid defense,
Yeah.
and then getting inside. Um, I think overall, I think the Nuggets are going to end up winning this thing. At most, it goes six, and
Yep.
that's if Tyler Hero can come back and have a true impact. We don't know what he's going to look like when he returns. He didn't play the entire Celtics series. I don't know how many games he played in the Knicks series, if at all. And then he didn't play game one, obviously. So I know there's talks that he could come back and play game two. And depending on how he plays, that can make a big difference. It's another 3-point shooter for the Heat. It's probably their best one when he is healthy, or at least the most consistent one. But yeah, in my opinion, I think Nuggets do end up winning this series. I would say five, but I could see it going six just based on that mentality that Heat play with, the coaching ability of Spoelstra, and then like I said, just that like drive from Jimmy Butler and everyone else down the roster.
For sure. I definitely have Denver winning tonight. Obviously, that's not a popular pick. They're 8-point favorites for a reason. Something also to note, they're undefeated at home in the playoffs. That's huge.
Are they
And
seriously? I did not
yeah,
know that. That's
they are.
crazy.
They've
Wow.
only lost 2 games in the playoffs, and one was to Minnesota. I think it was in Minnesota, and one was a loss to the Phoenix or whatever. But I mean, they're just insane. The more I think about it, and another thing is too, they have this advantage because Denver has this altitude thing, and I didn't really think about that.
Yep.
But you're playing 5,000 feet in the air in the mountains or whatever, right? And Miami, Florida's, not that all that matters, but Miami had to travel from Boston after an exhausting series where really they should have closed it out. They wanted to way sooner, but that dragged them on, and they had to play way more basketball than Denver, who's just been relaxing, been able to be refreshed, get their game plan on. So I really have Denver probably winning this in 5, like you said, most 6. Obviously, it would be probably a top 5 finals all time. Well, really for like Miami, if they were to somehow pull this upset off, because they're huge underdogs. I don't think anybody's seen an 8 seed win the overall thing. So
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know honestly.
yeah,
I'd have to check myself on that. Uh,
probably unlikely. Probably unlikely.
yeah.
So, I got Denver winning it all. It's not popular, but I think it's very, they should because I think they also were tested, and they just went through those teams. I mean, everybody's talking about how dynamic Phoenix is with KD and Booker, but they went through those guys, and then to sweep the Lakers, like the Lakers were playing some of the best basketball, leading up into the playoffs and in the playoffs itself. They made their roster much better. They went through them in 4. So Miami is definitely less talented than both of those teams, I would say. Jimmy's got the heart, he's got the hustle, but unless Jimmy comes out and drops a vintage Jimmy 30, 40, 50-point game, I don't really see Miami, winning this one tonight or, better yet, winning this series. So I got Denver in 5, and I got them winning tonight.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I would not be shocked in the slightest if Denver ends up winning tonight, and quite frankly, I think they could even end up sweeping this thing. Just
Yeah.
they are just looking that dominant right now, which is insane when you really think about it. Because again, like I figured if they were gonna have any struggles against any team, it probably would have been that Lakers squad. Just A, LeBron, and B, if any big man can somewhat match up to what Nikola Jokic is able to do, it probably would be a guy like Anthony Davis. Um, and I know he wasn't at like 100% health or anything like that, but just for them to go out there and sweep a team like that. I mean, LeBron, I think in his playoff career has only been swept. Was that the first time, or maybe it's been like 3 times total, including that one? I mean, it hasn't happened a whole lot. We'll put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just the way they were able to go out and do it, I mean, it's just so impressive. And I'm actually really glad you brought up that the thing about the altitude with Denver, because I feel like when you look at like the NFL with the Broncos, that's a
Hmm.
fact that like always gets brought up.
It is.
Anytime it's like a road game against the Denver Broncos, it is always something that the announcers make note of, and you're like, oh yeah, like the altitude. But I feel like with uh, with basketball or with like the Colorado Avalanche, who share the same arena
Yeah.
with the Nuggets and
Yeah.
won the NHL, won the Stanley Cup last
Hmm.
season. That's something with those two sports that doesn't really get brought up or taken into consideration. But I think it's a very good point. And literally, you've got the highest elevation team and the lowest elevation team, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken. I mean, Miami's
No,
basically like
pretty sure.
underwater, so it's
Yeah.
like
No, I'm pretty sure you're right. It's 2 totally different atmospheres, so I think you're
so
close.
yeah. So I mean, it's crazy, but I mean, yeah, I think it's great. As you can see, even for two teams that neither of us are, necessarily passionate about by any means. We both just love the game of basketball, and the same can be said, I would say, especially for football as well, with college football and the NFL. Um, So moving forward, as those sports start to come into their seasons, there will be a lot of coverage on all things like that. It's just so much fun to talk about these things because we are very passionate about our teams. Vincent, especially with like the Eagles and teams like that, and then like I said, myself, the Patriots, and
Hmm.
all other Boston teams, and then I also work for the Carolina Hurricanes,
Oh yeah,
who we made it
can't
all the
forget
way to
that.
the Eastern Conference Finals, got swept sadly. Uh, and Florida goes out and loses 5-2 last night, which was shocking in the
Yeah.
NHL Stanley Cup Finals.
Hmm.
But I mean, sports is just like I said. That's just 1/3 of what we plan on doing with this podcast, and we just can't wait to keep building off of that. But I think for the second part of this, we're gonna transition talking about some recent stuff in the stock market. I actually was gonna talk to you because it's funny enough. Like me and my dad were talking about it when I was over at my parents' house earlier, and he was like, do you have your eyes on Apple for tomorrow? Like he was like, do you still have stock in that? And I was like, oh yeah. Like I'm so excited because I'm pretty sure they've got like a big like conference coming up or something like that,
They do.
and they're about to start debuting their virtual reality, augmented reality stuff. They're about to start revealing their artificial intelligence because all the different companies have started to get involved. It started with like the chat GPT or whatever, but then all of a sudden you've got like Elon Musk talking about AI. You've got Google and Facebook, and now Apple's gonna get involved. I mean, do you think this is just gonna be the next big, I guess, tech boom in terms of stocks? Is AI the next market, if you will? And then overall, how do you think Apple will impact the rest of the S&P or just any other related stocks?
Yeah, well, I think it's safe to say that this AI theme is really starting to take off, and I mean, really starting to take off, especially the past 2 months or so. Because in terms of the overall economy, everybody has said, bears on Twitter and just in general, a lot of people have really assessed that the market really shouldn't be trading where it's at right now due to, we still have inflation that still needs to come down. It is coming down a little bit. You have interest rates rising, which sometimes that can slow down the amount of money being spent in the economy. But with that being said, a lot of people have piled their investments and their money into AI and all across the board. I mean, all of tech names have been breaking out and have seen further upside. I mean, Apple is literally $5 away, I think, from making an all-time high. And literally in January, it was 125. So even if you just started your Apple investment at the beginning of this year, I mean, I feel like I'm an idiot for not even getting long in here. But seriously, you mean you would have been up 30, 40% on long term on the best company. And so with that being said, Apple, I'm a big news trader. Apple does have a catalyst this week, I do believe. They are doing their AR headset reveal tomorrow, and that could be a really next big thing in the space. Obviously, the stocks, they always trade on what can you do for me in the future? How can you provide future value to my investment if I invest in your company? And investors are basically saying, I'd rather bet on the future of AI than bet on the fears of the overall market because historically, markets tend to go higher. I mean, there will be times, you got the COVID crash, the '08 crash, the dot-com bubble. There will be a time, maybe once every 10, 12 years that there is a crash, but historically, stocks are designed to go up. It's really hard to bet against S&P when you have the best company, Apple. It makes up a majority of the weight. Uh, About to break out here really soon. I mean, it already is. And that catalyst, that AR announcement thing with the headset thing could be the next big thing. And, they have all the cash in the world to get into the hot theme, whether that be AI, electric vehicles, you name it. So, very exciting time. If you're any tech investor, congratulations, because I think it's only up from here. I mean, that's literally how the market's been trading, and all these stocks are looking great. So, um, crazy times we're living in because no one expected this, but the market's going to do, sometimes the unexpected. So, really cool to see. And I know you're an Apple shareholder yourself, so you got to be
Yes.
feeling pretty good about that.
Yeah, I mean, Apple was one of those ones that I got into. Yeah, and Vinny's heard me talk about it like 100 times now, but I got into Apple when the stock split occurred. I want to say when that happened, or the most recent stock split. They've had a few in their history. And I want to say after the stock split, the immediate price was like 113 a share, and I was able to get like 10 shares right at that price, and then like just over time I've been adding more and more. Because to me, every time it's been down at like 125, 130, I'm just sitting there and I'm like, this is just such a bargain. Because anytime there's some sort of new development in tech, if they're not the ones who initiate that new development, you know damn well they're gonna get involved and put their own spin on it. And I mean, they're just, Apple is one of the most dominant tech companies in the world. They have so much influence in so many different spaces. Just start looking at your phone. That's a good way to put it. They put
Yeah.
literal computers in every single person's pocket. I mean,
Yeah.
it's crazy how that's gone. But actually, another one I wanted to bring up with you, and I'm sure you've been paying attention because, like you said, he's a news trader is one of his biggest strengths, and something that I've seen a lot in the news within the tech industry is Nvidia actually, which funny enough, other than graphics cards, because we both have PCs, we're gamers, we've got our Nvidia graphics cards. Other than that, and knowing that over the past couple of years they've been putting out new and more new models of those things, their stock has just started to skyrocket. I want to say they're at
Literally.
like an all-time high right
Oh
now.
yeah. Oh yeah.
And I was gonna say, like, what have you been seeing with that one specifically that's been causing it to run the way that it is?
Yeah, well, Nvidia is one of these stocks. This is literally a unicorn. And what a unicorn, I mean, is like these stocks where they just continue to trade higher, like no matter what, because there's just so much hype, and I mean, for good reason. The company is performing well in earnings and things like that. Their chip is going to be very used a lot in the AI space. And this is another stock. I mean, I'm looking at its chart right here. The beginning of this year, Nvidia was 139, 140 a share. Stock's 400 a share now. I mean, you're up basically close to 200% on your investment, and it's probably only going to keep going up. I mean, over time, obviously there's going to be pullbacks and stuff, but basically the Nvidia kind of reminds me of the Tesla from
Right.
2020 to 2021, where you know fundamentally the stock shouldn't be trading where it's at, but there's a saying the market's going to stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent, and that's literally the case here with Nvidia. So you know, I do have an Nvidia, I think a 370 chip, and I really don't know as much about semiconductors. I've started to learn more about it, but basically with Nvidia, their main chip is going to be used a lot in the AI development. They have the technology for it, and they also just had earnings where um, they just they're going to increase like their guidance and their revenue going forward. Like they beat by a wide margin and they increase. So investors are already betting on the speculation that AI is going to be the next big thing with how these stocks are trading. You add a beat on earnings and increased guidance and revenue, that only keeps investors excited. So, um, obviously, I'm not going to buy here when the stock's up 200% in 6 months. But I mean, hey, if you caught it at less than 200 a share or even lower than that, I mean, you're sitting pretty. So, one of the craziest runs I think I've ever seen on a stock in my life. But that just goes to show, like, how powerful the market can be sometimes, because a lot of people bet against this company and it's just continue to go higher and higher.
Right. I mean, and again, it's showing the power of the AI, industry, and just how, how positively investors and the market in general view artificial intelligence, not just now, but moving forward in just our lives. But some stuff that we have seen, and we had been talking about this, I think, last week, there have been a few instances now where something's artificially created. It's spread on Twitter, spread on social media, and it you know has a negative impact, at least in the present moment, on a particular stock and causes it to, take a big hit. And I think that goes to show that, there are plenty of positives that artificial intelligence can be used for and will be used for. Um, but it does show that it's another situation where laws and regulation have to catch up with technology. It's always going to be behind. That's just how it is. That's how it always has been historically. And I think we're at another situation here where it's going to have to get regulated in certain ways so that it doesn't cause problems like that where a company takes a massive hit because some random person goes and generates an image that makes it look like, you know to throw out a random hypothetical here, but let's say someone were to go and AI generate something that looks like 9/11 2.0 is happening, and people are spreading that around on Twitter and not taking the time to fact check it. It looks hyper realistic, and all of a sudden the stock market starts tanking, or at least a few stocks start tanking, and it comes out after the fact like this was an AI generated image, this isn't real, and you know that has a big financial impact on shareholders in those particular companies. Not to mention it just seeing something like that would probably put fear into a lot of people's eyes. Just because again, these images can get
Really realistic.
really realistic.
Like
Yeah, I don't know how
it's
to.
like, I mean, yeah, it's like futuristic. Like it's crazy.
It's crazy, and
Um,
I mean, I
yeah.
just do you think we're gonna see more examples of that? At least in the coming years, where there's a situation where AI, for as great as a thing as it's gonna be, there's gonna be issues like that.
Yeah, there probably will be just because when there's always something new, like you said, it is going to take time for regulation and rules to keep up. But it does show that there does need to be regulation and rules because, like you said, these images or anything look so real. Like someone made me like a whole like Rocky cartoon thing, and it looked like someone like some artist from like take your favorite artist like just made that. Like it was insane, and they made it, and the AI made it in I don't know how many minutes. But aside from that, it's just crazy to think that it's like a slippery slope. It reminds me of like Twitter Blue. Remember like Twitter when you could, at the beginning you can pay to get verified. Obviously, it's good for to keep away scammers and stuff. But there was like people faking Twitter Blue of these real companies and releasing good or mostly bad news, right? To move the stock down and theoretically they're probably just buying it up just for the move to go higher. And I actually just saw the same example, but this time with AI. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, and like someone had an AI of like the Pentagon, and I don't want to get too much in detail about what happened, but obviously they were thinking bad stuff with it,
That's
and
exactly what I was thinking about. Right. I mean, when I said that's why, like, when I said the 9/11 2.0, like, I know
yeah,
I was like, I was on the right track. I knew that's what it was. I just couldn't remember the specific example. But you're right. It was like an issue where there was like something that happened at the Pentagon,
yeah,
which for those that don't know, obviously 9/11. Most people think the Twin Towers in New York. The Pentagon was also a place that was impacted directly by the airplane hijackings back in 2001. So that obviously shook a lot of people, and they see an image like that. It looks so realistic, and they're like, "Holy shit! Like, what the hell is going on?"
yeah. That's the thing, though, because the stock market it trades based on two things. You have two emotions: feed and I'm sorry, greed and fear. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody, when you see, okay, we might have another crash here. Yeah, of course the market's gonna want to tank and probably sell. And the when I was watching this, I mean, the sell off was like $1, $2 on the S&P, and like, I mean, like 30 seconds to a minute. It was crazy. Just for people to realize, okay, it's fake, and then it bounced back like it should have. But um, that's just, yeah, one of those things where there'll probably need to be some regulation over time because technically anybody could make their own AI thing, right? And maybe place a big trade or whatever to get it in their direction just for it to, then to take profit and then to, have the market be trading where it should be. That's where it can get probably, I don't know what the right word is, but yeah, I think over time you will see regulation. There should be. AI does have a lot of great things. You can do a lot of things efficiently, like with that Chat GPT.
Yep.
Um, but with all the good that comes with it, there will be some bad, just like anything in life. So, I think at some point, yeah, there's going to be regulation, as there probably should on it. So,
Yeah, 100%. And uh, it's funny that you brought up the Twitter Blue example as well, because I know obviously that's a little different than AI. It's not quite the same thing. Um, but that was another thing that we were talking about related to stocks and the stock market was we've seen a few examples like you said where someone just goes and they make their Twitter name the name of some sort of company. They'll go and it looks super real because everyone's still so used to blue check mark on Twitter, meaning that is the official verified page. Not everyone is uh, caught up to the whole. There's the gold check mark, and then for the government there's the gray check mark, and now anybody can have the blue one if they pay $8 or whatever. And we've seen examples where people go and they fake an account, they put out some sort of random fake news, obviously, and it causes a stock market or a particular stock ticker to take a big hit. And I mean, like you said, the whole like pay for verification thing, it certainly is a debate. It has its positives because obviously the whole like paying for Twitter Blue for those that make use of it, whether they're a creator or Vincent, he's constantly sharing his stock analysis and all those types of things. And obviously he's trading big money. He's trading real money, and he's also trying to help educate anyone who comes across his pages and his socials. And it's important that people know that that's him. That's him saying that stuff. Because even he's got what like 26,000 followers on Twitter, which compared to maybe some celebrity or some big company maybe isn't huge, but compared
hmm
to someone like myself or just your average person on Twitter, like that's a big number. And he even has situations where people will go and make fake accounts of Rocky B trades, and it's just crazy that it's that simple for people to go and impersonate someone, and it obviously can have a major detrimental effect depending on if people don't catch it. And it's this weird back and forth debate that we have now where it's like, is it safe to have it like this? Should it go back to the original way of verification? And I was wondering if you had any sort of thoughts one way or another on that.
Yeah, well, I think at first, Twitter Blue and a lot of people, it was very controversial because it's like to be verified, you know, rightfully so, it probably should only be celebrities and but like you said, if you got a business and there's scammers, ideally, you want someone to be subscribing to the person who's legitimate, not the scammer. So for Twitter Blue, like it made sense, and I'm a big Elon fan. He's very entrepreneurial, and he got creative with the Twitter Blue and subscription model as a business is amazing because I mean that's how Netflix does their things. I mean,
Right.
literally everything you pay for is probably subscription based, and
Xbox Live.
Xbox Live. Oh, I've been paying for that one for a minute. Steam, yeah, you name it. But no, I think it's they've done better. He's done better with the development of it because I remember when I subscribed to Twitter Blue, I had to put in my ID and my all my information to really verify it's me, which is good. And when you are Twitter Blue verified, it will decrease your chances of someone making a scam account and scamming on your name, really. So I think it makes sense. It but like I said, there are going to be mishappens or things that shouldn't happen sometimes, and either the AI space or the Twitter Blue space, anything that's new. But over time, it'll get better, and I think Twitter Blue has. I think AI hopefully should do the same thing because we don't want people's investments getting wrecked with just because someone made a fake image and things like that. That's obviously not called for. So,
Right.
um, but yeah, it's a crazy time we live in. It just goes to show like the power of technology. Just because my parents didn't grow up with any of this stuff. For the longest time, up until we were in like middle school or early high school, we didn't have all this stuff. And now just to see the growth of social media, the growth of AI, the growth of content creation. I mean, everything, gaming.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just crazy. So there's just a lot of opportunities out there, and definitely want to make sure you're following the right people, within those certain industries. So
100%. I mean, like you said, the change in technology that our generation has experienced probably from 2009, 2010 up until the present day. I mean, I can't say this factually. I'm not 100% sure, but it's in my opinion it's got to be the quickest growth in technology that the world has ever seen in terms of from where we were at to where we're at now, all the different capabilities we have and the ease of each capability. It's insane. And like we said, these new features, pay to subscribe, artificial intelligence. Obviously, the technology outpaces the way that we can control it and regulate it. Um, but it's one of those things where with time, we assume it will only get better. And obviously, both or at least AI specifically is one of those ones that's like a huge industry to pay attention to, consider investing in. This isn't professional investing advice. I will go ahead and make that very clear so no one gets that twisted. But at least from what I'm seeing, what Vincent's seeing, obviously this is a very big opportunity, a big change in the tech industry in general. Um, and it has a lot of uses for efficiency and things that can be done positively. So I mean, it's just a very exciting time overall. And I would say before we go ahead and wrap up this first episode, something I want to do, and I hadn't told you about this before, but I'm sure you'll be ready for it. I know you're constantly working behind the scenes in preparation for the work week, which in your case is trading the stock market. And for anyone who thinks that that's an easy way to go about things, you got it all wrong. There's so much behind the scenes work that has to be done, and that's
yeah,
why I've got so much respect for this guy. Um,
appreciate you, bro.
Give me like three or four tickers that maybe for tomorrow you've got your eyes on, or not tomorrow, but like for the coming week in general.
For sure.
Dane, thank you for that follow, by the way.
Dan is the man. Love that guy. He's a beast. But anyways, yeah, appreciate the kind words, Drew. Stock market, it isn't easy to do something like this, but it can be cool. Just meeting people online and doing what I love. But anyways, a couple tickers to watch for this week. Obviously, very popular pick. Nothing we say is financial advice. I promise. This is all educational for entertainment. But obviously, got Apple. As we talked about earlier, it's a chalk pick. Everybody knows about Apple, right? But um, they got that catalyst this week. We'll see. As a news trader, typically stocks they like to go. They like to run up, and people like to buy them into the catalyst and usually sell beforehand. Or who knows if the catalyst is good enough, it can always cause more excitement for investors to keep that move going and chugging along. Um, a key level over it, is going to be that Friday high at 181.78. Apple closed at 180.95. So you definitely want to watch it over there. This really could go test all-time highs. It has to break over early January highs at 183. After that, it's probably just psych levels and price exploration phase from there at 185, 190 plus. So we'll keep that an eye on that. Another ticker um, is going to be AMD, Advanced Micro Devices. This is a ticker that's also in the same sector as Nvidia. Obviously, we know tech has had a huge run up recently. The stock has pulled back a little bit from its 130 highs. It made um, middle last week, early Wednesday. So now stock is 117. Recently it was just 130. I have some support here, this 115.80 to 117.30. So this maybe could be a good long opportunity. I also have a daily, indicator. It might try and bounce from here. So gonna watch advanced micro devices, same sector as Nvidia. Um, so alongside, and the last one I have, not a name I trade too often, just because it's a growth stock. Growth hasn't been moving like it used to, but it's going to be Teladoc. There's this investor. Her name is Kathy Woods. She's a big, trader in the space, but this is one of her holdings, and it's trying to break out over a daily downtrend. Not only that, but growth stocks have been really strong. Investors have been pretty risk on recently, just with how the market's been trading higher and higher. And I feel like growth stocks like to go in the summer. That's when like AMC and GME used to go back in the day. So I'm gonna keep my eye on this one as well. And those are probably my top three I'm gonna be watching this week. So I'm excited
Yeah.
for another week of trading. And yeah, if anyone else is trading, best of luck to you. And it's exciting times we're in right now.
100%. So I mean, there you have it. We've got our tickers to watch out for this week. This is our very first episode of Got Your Trade. Like we said, this is something we've been looking forward to. Very excited to get started for y'all. Uh, Next to our names on the screen, you can see all of our socials. You can go ahead and follow. Highly suggest to keep up with all the different things that we're paying attention to within gaming, sports, and trading uh, on a daily basis. So be sure to go ahead and do that. We're gonna try to make this show a once a week thing, and obviously if something presents itself, maybe come in with a special episode here or there more frequently or whatever it may be. But like I said, we're very excited to be doing this. We're gonna have the VOD uploaded on YouTube for anyone who didn't catch it live. Um, but until next time, I hope you all enjoyed this one. Vincent, again, thanks for doing this with me. I'm very excited about it. Very happy to be doing this with one of my best friends, and
Likewise.
we'll catch y'all in the next one. Thank you so much.
Catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Drew, that was a blast. I'm looking forward to what we got in the future. We got your trade. Feel free to, drop a like and show some support and give us a follow on socials and, maybe ask us some questions so we can cover them in the next one. But hope you guys have a good rest of your night. And that was a great first episode. Got your trade. Catch you
Yes,
guys later.
sir.